Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Oulton Park for your next dose of Ginetta action at this Easter Bank Holiday British GT event. It's the Ginetta GT Academy heading out now for their second race of the weekend. They raced on Saturday for the first time, a 20-minute race that was dominated by Nick White, one of the pre-season championship favourites, and he is so far living up to that billing, it must be said, with a victory by over 12 seconds after 20 minutes on Saturday afternoon. That was, though, in very different conditions to the ones facing the drivers right now. It was dry and it was sunny and it was pretty mild even on Saturday afternoon. Right now, well, we've got the sun back, thankfully, but the other two things that I just said, certainly not true of our Monday morning here. We have just had a pretty horrendous rain shower about half an hour or so ago. The track is pretty sodden, and it's certainly not very warm here at all. The spectators who continue to pile into what is always a hugely popular event here at Oulton Park are wrapped up warm and trying their best to keep as dry as possible. The track temperature extremely low. Anything down into the low teens is always a little bit of a challenge for the drivers. The threat of more rain later on in the day as well, but for the time being, a wet track that could start to get drier and drier over the 20-minute race that's about to get underway should provide for plenty of interest. The grid for this one, based upon the race result from, no, it's not from the second fastest lap times, excuse me, from qualifying yesterday. So Nick White, yesterday's winner, started from pole in race 1. He will start from pole again in race number 2. And under deceptively blue skies. That is a very flattering camera angle we found from the shell end of the circuit. It looks like a beautiful spring day, doesn't it, from there? But yeah, the conditions out there set to be a challenge, I think, for the 15 drivers that hopefully will be taking the start of the race. The third season of racing in the Ginetta GT Academy. This is a championship that's been going from strength to strength over the years. Lots of drivers moving on to other things, though, for 2023, which, of course, is kind of the point of a series like this. It's supposed to train drivers up to be able to go and make a career for themselves in GT racing or elsewhere. And so we've got quite a few new faces, a few familiar names, though, at the sharp end of the field. And it's those drivers who we would expect, especially in the early stages of the season, to be contending for race victories. Take a look then at how they will line up for our second race. Nick White on pole position. Ravi Rammeed will line up alongside him. Ravi finished down in 5th yesterday, so we'll be looking for a bit of retribution after that one. Ed Akers, an expected front runner, has the top rookie, Matt Shaw, for company. Matt Shaw just missed out on a podium in race number 1. Thomas Shelley and James Taylor together on the 3rd row of the grid, and then row number 4 is where you will find John Kearney and Mark Elton. These are all drivers who have a year or so's experience of GT Academy racing under their belt, and we'll be looking to use that experience here today. Emma Tomlinson is new, familiar name though I'm sure to those of you who follow all things Ginetta, with Amy Tomlinson keeping it in the family on the 5th row of the grid. 6 for Richard Just and Charlotte Lowe, as you're seeing lots of rookie drivers here. We have 2 classes of driver. We'll get into that when the race gets underway, but the rookies making the bulk of the midfield, it seems. Lucy Tomlinson is next, 13th on the grid, with Phil McGarty starting alongside her on row 7. Mackenzie Walker will complete the runners, and Mackenzie, along with Richard Just, were 2 non-finishers in yesterday's race. And I wonder whether we might see a few of them not reach the flag here today. These conditions, as we're seeing from on board with Thomas Shelley, are far from favourable. And actually the sun coming out now in a way makes things worse, because the sun glistens off the wet, shiny road and will make visibility even worse. The spray is a challenge as it is, and then when you've got the sun sort of coming through that spray, it becomes even harder to see where you're going. So the early stages particularly will be a little bit of a challenge. This is the first of 2 green flag laps that they're being given, because we have quite clearly had a change of conditions since Saturday, which was the last time the drivers were out on track. And the drivers in these GT Academy cars need all of the practice, if you like, that they can get in these conditions, because they are notoriously difficult cars to drive. These G56 GT Academy cars derive from the GT4 chassis that we will see racing in British GT later on today, and sort of slightly well, still a very powerful car, but they've taken away a lot of the electronic aids that would help in a fully fledged GT4 car. For example, they run on Michelin road tyres, have the V6 engine underneath the hood, and that produces around about 270 brake horsepower. doesn't weigh a lot, just over 1,000 kilos, and that lack of weight but quite a bit of power and no traction control usually makes the cars a little bit of a handful, even in the dry conditions. Now in the wet, that is going to be even more tricky. So yeah, drivers definitely will be grateful for this second green flag lap in order to gauge exactly how much or little grip they will have when they go for the right pedal. So we see some really good racing over the years in Ginetta GT Academy. Last year, Mark Warren claimed the championship. Ravi Ramveed was the rookie champion. Now, I mentioned there are two classes. The car's identical. It is simply the drivers who are separated into two classes, as is often the Ginetta way. So you've got the GTA class and the rookie class. So GTA is for drivers who have a bit of experience in this championship. The rookie class, you'll be surprised to hear, is for drivers who are new to GT Academy racing. And they score points towards an overall championship as well. So a rookie driver could claim the overall championship, but they will at least have their own rookie title to contend for. But we very regularly actually see rookie drivers up there fighting for race victories. Didn't particularly see that yesterday, it must be said. Matt Shaw, the highest placed rookie in race 1, fourth on the grid. Sorry, fourth in the race, I should say. Matt Shaw will, it does, as it happens, start fourth here for today's second race, but he was just off the podium in race 1. A race that saw Nick White disappear off into the distance, but a pretty entertaining scrap for second. Ed Akers, James Taylor, Matt Shaw, Ravi Ramveed all running pretty close together before separating in the final few laps. And Ravi Ramveed definitely would be a little frustrated, I would imagine, to be stuck down in 5th place in that race, starting on the front row this time around. But Ravi has been a front runner ever since he started racing in GT Academy a year or so ago, and will be hoping, I'm sure, to have a slightly better run today than he did in the dry on Saturday. Needs to get off the line well, though. That can be a challenge in these cars, and especially in the wet conditions. As you can see, the start-finish straight. It's not really a straight here at Oulton Park. It's also not flat at all. So depending on where you are on the grid, you might be pointing uphill, downhill, might be on the grippier side of the road, might not be. And can lead to a bit of shuffling sometimes into the first corner. So 20 minutes on the clock then, a wet track to be contended with, and as the lights go out, we do indeed have a variety of reaction times and a bit of wheel spin there, I'm afraid, for Ed Akers, the orange number 20 car. He's plummeting down the order. It is going to be yesterday's race winner, though, who will lead the way. Race actually shortened, as you can see, to 10 minutes then, so this is because we're running slightly behind time here after the weather caused us late to an earlier race. So only 10 minutes now for Ed Akers to try and recover from what was not his best start, it must be said. White and Ramveed, though, I think are the two who are disappearing up the road as they now try to explore exactly how much grip they've got down at the end of the Lakeside Straight. There is the number 17 car of Ramveed giving chase, and I think should have the pace here to take the fight to Nick White. They set almost identical qualifying lap times, only 2 1/1000ths of a second the difference between those two in second fastest lap times that set the grid for this second race. So expect a good tussle here as long as Ravi can stay on the track, and he's looking up the inside into the Britain chicane. They both stay well away from the curb. Ramveed even wider on the entry. Sliding through there is Ed Akers. Ed Akers is somehow still in 4th position. It looked as though he was going to be 7th or 8th going into the first turn, but he's fought back nicely and is trying now to find a way back ahead of James Taylor, who has come through from 6th on the grid to run in an early podium place. Akers is up the inside of him, is he? No, not quite late enough on the brakes at Hislops, and so the 56 car stays in front. Still Matt Shaw who leads the rookies. He's lost 1 place from where he started, and that is Phil McGarty who has gone round. That's the exit of Britons by the looks of it. And that is, I would guess, a result of a little bit of wheel spin on acceleration, which is so easy to do in these cars. Very limited on traction, particularly in the wet. Top two, though, with plenty of experience of GT Academy racing, they are able to get straight onto the pace. They're romping away from the rest of the field. We should hopefully now have a slightly closer battle for the victory than we did the other day. Defensive line taken by White into Lodge Corner. Ramveed going right round the outside. Now that will give him plenty of grit on the exit, but he was a bit too eager on the right foot there. Lost the rear slightly, lost that momentum, and so White will retain the advantage as they cross the line at the end of lap 1 of what is, as I said, a shortened 10-minute race now. So if Ramveed is to bounce back properly from Saturday's disappointment, he hasn't got that long to do it. Replay here of what happened to Phil McGarty, and there he goes. maybe clip the curb, but there is a bump in the road, a little dip just as you go through that final left-hand apex. That can unsettle the car. And around he went. I've also just seen out of the window a moment for Ed Akers. I think Ed Akers has been off at Lodge Corner and has come across the line down in 15th place. So a real up and down first lap for Ed Akers. And another car off. That's the 47 car of Emma Tomlinson at Cascades. Does well to keep it out or get it back out of the gravel. Spins back towards the track, pointing the wrong way. Let's hope that Emma hasn't stalled the car, though, because that is definitely a dangerous position that would likely result in a safety car if she can't get going from there. 10-second time penalty, by the way, being handed out to car number 25. That's John Kearney. It will be added after the race, and the timing screen wasn't telling me what that was for, but I'm going to hazard a guess it's a start procedure issue, out of position or a jump start, something like that. The start is being investigated, we're also being told. So he will find himself dropping a little bit further down the order from 6th at the moment that he runs. Leaders down at Knickerbrook, though, and Avi Rammeed is certainly keeping Nick White honest, and in the wet, in theory, there may well be a few more overtaking opportunities around here. You can experiment with your line through certain parts of the track. The traditional racing line, wide in, tight through the apex and wide out, not always the grippiest line in the wet. So Rammeed searching around for that grip behind Nick White, and Lodge Corner definitely one of the places where he can do that. He tried it a lap ago to go to the outside. Another spin, that is Lucy Tomlinson. That's two of the Tomlinsons who've been off on this lap. And Lucy thankfully keeps the car running. I'm guessing that Emma also got going, because we're not seeing any... Oh no, we are getting a safety car. Spoke too soon. Safety car boards are out, so there is Emma Tomlinson. She did not get the car going again, and that's a shame, because this was building nicely, this fight between Nick White and Ravi Rammeed at the front. And I'm now suspecting we may have limited racing remaining, because although it shouldn't take too long to get that car out of the way, a safety car lap around here is... Oh, well, it really won't, actually. The marshal's pushing the car out of the way without the need for a recovery vehicle. So the optimist in me says that we might go racing at the end of this lap. A racing lap time is just in excess of 2 minutes. Behind the safety car, that will go closer to 3 minutes, probably. So we might get a lap in here at the end of the race. But Ravi Rammeed will be frustrated, because I think he will feel that he's got the pace to win this one. It was just a matter of working on Nick White, trying to find where the grip was, maybe force a mistake out of the race leader. Definitely looks like it's drying out as well. I know they're going at low speed now, but even at racing speed, there wasn't a huge amount of spray being kicked up behind the cars out at the back of the circuit especially. It always takes a bit longer to dry in third sector here because of the tree coverage through Druids and Lodge. Likely that will dry out before our British GT race that's coming up imminently. So the rest of the track improving all the while, and as the sun does continue to shine down, that will only assist in the drying of the track. Behind the safety car, not clearing quite as much surface water out of the way, are they? They will at least be able to cool down their Michelin tyres, which, should the track have got too dry, would have started to overheat. They run on the same tyres, though, whether it's dry or wet. It is a road tyre that these GT Academy G56s run on. But in the dry, the drivers often complain that the tyres, when they get a bit warm, are not yielding a huge amount of grip. In a way, the wet conditions playing slightly more into the favour of those tyres. So White leads, Rammeed second, Taylor third, Shaw fourth, so looks set to perhaps replicate his result from the other day. Then Shelley, Kearney with a penalty, Walker, Elman, Just, and the only Tomlinson not to have been off the road so far, Amy Tomlinson, running in the back of the top 10. Ed Akers is up to 12th now, with other people having dramas. And what further progress can he make over what actually may be 2 laps of racing, because the lights are out on the Ginetta safety car. We're going to go racing with just under 2.5 minutes to go, probably. As I said, a lap time, 2 minutes 4, 2 minutes 5. And look at Ravi Rammeed always pushing Nick White through the final corner there. Thinking, get on with it, I want to go racing. Over the hill they go. They are going to have time for 2 more laps, and Ravi Rammeed is already on the attack, hunting around to the inside line at Old Hall Corner. Can he commit to a move on the inside? Yes, he can. Where is the grip, though? It might be in the favour of Nick White on the outside. Watch for his exit speed. No, Rammeed has gone through, so we have a lead change. Ravi Rammeed back to the front, and now here comes Taylor up the inside as well. This is really good opportunistic driving this from James Taylor, who started 6th and was very nearly in 2nd as they arrived down at Cascades. Had to bail out of it, though. And we'll now try and get the run down the lakeside straight on board with Thomas Shelley. 5th position, exactly where Thomas started the race. One of only a handful still running in the same position that they took the green flag. But they're all really bunched together actually on this safety car restart, more so than they were arguably off the initial start. Out of Shell, a bit wide there for Shaw in front. So Matt Shaw leading the rookie class. Second in that class at the moment is Richard Just. And as I said, Amy Tomlinson rounding out the top 10 is on for a class podium right now. Through the British again, through the left, through the right. Over hilltop they will go again. Some good battles going on a bit further back, and keep an eye to that orange car of Ed Akers, who hasn't actually made any progress since the restart, it seems. So now Ravi Ramid's in front. He does look a bit quicker than Nick White in these conditions, doesn't he? So Ramid pulling out a little bit of a gap in the sectors. Well, sector 1 he was about 6/10 quicker, and that was with an overtake, of course, over White. The 2 time coming up shortly, a 59.3 for Ramid and a 1:0.1, so nearly a full second gain in the middle sector alone. Ravi Ramid is going like a train here in these slippery conditions. And is White possibly going to come under pressure here from Taylor towards the end? Maybe not. He's gapped him slightly in the middle sector. The battle that could erupt, I think, is the one for 4th position, because Thomas Shelley is looking very, very keen to find a way past Matt Shaw. There is Mackenzie Walker, who is 7th on the road, but that's 6th on corrected times with this penalty for John Kearney. So the final lap begins then. They did just have time to squeeze another lap out of this second round of the Ginetta GT Academy Championship. And the top 2 positions now looking reasonably secure. 3rd place for James Taylor, perhaps a little less so, because towards the back end of that lap, Matt Shaw actually was reeling him in slightly. Very wide line there for John Kearney. Irish driver struggling now to hang on to that 6th place on the road, actually. Back on board with Shelley. See a definite dry line now starting to appear out of this part of the track. It's drying by the minute up at Ireland and Shell. Oh, car in the barriers, and that is Phil McGarty. So Phil McGarty has already had one spin. That looks like Old Hall corner, I think. Yes, it is. The yellow's at Old Hall, and he's gone off into the Recticel barriers, which absorb the impact beautifully, so there's not too much damage to the car. Barrier will need repairing after this race. Thankfully, we're on the final lap anyway, so we'll bring about an early conclusion to this second round of the championship. Novice cross on the back of Matt Shaw's car to note that he is one of the rookies. Is he going to be able to withstand the pressure here from Thomas Shelley? The final lap of the race, through the right and left at Hislops. Interesting to see the difference in lines there. Shaw and in fact Taylor ahead of him, staying well away from the curb. Much tighter lines being taken by Shelley. You would expect in the wet for that to not be the fastest way through, but actually he was closing in slightly through that sequence of corners. Ravi Ramid, though, has judged this to perfection, really. I thought maybe the safety car might have robbed him of an opportunity to go off and challenge Nick White, but as soon as the race restarted, he launched up the inside at Old Hall corner. It was a decisive move, a clean move, and a move that is going to yield him a race victory. I think there's some side-by-side action behind, is there, as they come down towards Lodge corner. That was Mackenzie Walker getting ahead of John Kearney, I think, actually. So Kearney was going to lose that place anyway, and he's lost it on the road, potentially. Checkered flag is out, though. Ravi Ramid has claimed the victory in round number 2 of the Ginetta GT Academy by 1.3 seconds over Nick White 2nd, Taylor 3rd, Shelley 4th, and then the timing screen starts to correct itself with Mackenzie Walker indeed 5th. And in fact, it was Matt Shaw that Walker was going past. So Matt Shaw losing 2 spots on the final lap there. And Mackenzie Walker, who started from the back of the grid, has managed to get into the top 5 at the last corner. Shaw must have had a moment then at Druids, which explains why he suddenly lost momentum down underneath the Paul Warwick Bridge. All of this of no consequence to Ravi Ramid, who will be a little more satisfied now with that race result. Shaw 5th place yesterday was not what he was hoping for. Started that first race from pole as well yesterday, Ravi. So would definitely have been targeting a podium as a bare minimum, but had a moment, dropped back, recovered to 5th, but ultimately was not as high as he probably should have finished. He'll bank some good championship points now with this race victory. The traditional Ginetta point system in play, so 35 points for the race victory this time for Ravi to go along with the 20 that he scored on Saturday. Ravi Ramyi then wins race number 2 of the Ginetta GT Academy here at Oulton Park. Nick White second, and third position goes the way of the number 56 car of James Taylor. Then it was Thomas Shelley and Mackenzie Walker completing the top 5 after Matt Shaw dropped back on the final lap. 7th position, this is all now because of the penalty for John Kearney shuffling things around. 7th goes the way of Mark Elman. Then in 8th position was Richard Just, who was not finisher yesterday, and John Kearney, that 10 seconds added on, is in 9th. Then it was Amy Tomlinson in 10th position. Ed Akers recovered only to 11th after his moment on the first lap. Then it was Lowe ahead of the next of the Tomlinson brigade. That was Lucy Tomlinson. Phil McGarty was 14th, but technically wasn't running at the flag, and nor was Emma Tomlinson, who brought about the safety car, the brief safety car interlude in the middle part of the race. So, entertaining second race. Shame we had that little bit of safety car running in the middle, but Ravi Ramyi and Nick White gave us quite a show in the racing laps that we did have at a soggy Oulton Park. It was a very even start from both of the front row starters. Further back, a little bit of a mix of reaction times and wheel spin management. Saw a big shuffling of the order from third on back. It was a good start made by James Taylor there to get up into third at the first corner. And Matt Shaw, despite running wide over the curbs, would settle into 4th position. An early spin for Phil McGarty exiting the British chicane, but his day would get worse than that as the race went on. Thankfully, he was able to keep the engine fired and got going again. There was a spin out of Lodge Corner for Ed Akers whilst he was running inside the top 5, and that sent him well out of the top 10. And his opportunities to gain ground were limited thanks to a safety car that came out. Emma Tomlinson having a spin through the gravel at Cascade. It was only 1 lap behind the pace car, thankfully, before we were able to go racing for a 2-lap shootout for the victory. And it was the battle between Nick White and Ravi Ramyi that immediately ignited. Ramyi on his toes on the restart, got up the inside at Old Hall Corner and made a decisive, clean move and immediately started to pull clear. He never really looked back from that point on as he and Nick White proved themselves once again to be the class of the field in the early stages of the 2023 campaign. So Ravi Ramyi makes it 1-1 between himself and Nick White here at Oulton Park. Third race still to come later on in the weekend. The wet conditions at Oulton Park proving no challenge for our race winner, Ravi Ramyi.